Coming in at $27 US, the PG2 is the most expensive budget gaming mouse that I have reviewed so far. So, when Inphic contacted me about sending me one to review, I was interested to see what one could get for paying a more premium price in this budget category. Taking the mouse out of its clear packaging immediately shows off its unique design for a budget mouse, featuring a large ring finger and pinky rest on the right side, which put my hand in a very natural position when using the mouse, and was very similar to my Logitech MX Master, with my thumb on the left side comfortably sitting between the two rows of buttons, which meant that my wide but short hands, and as some would describe, sausage fingers, held the mouse at an angle, again reminding me of the MX Master, a $100 mouse. I do see the potential for this to be less comfortable or precise to use if you have longer or overall smaller hands, or you use a claw grip. And I will admit, the more relaxed natural hand position of this mouse does lend itself more to desktop use than gaming, but I personally liked it and enjoyed it the entire time I used the mouse, which is a fact that's also mirrored in the weight. With all three adjustable weights removed, I measured the mouse at 102 grams, and when they were installed, it measured at 115. For comparison, the MX Master comes in at 150, and the Razer Death Adder at 100. However, unlike my Death Adder, this mouse felt dense, something that is also reflected in the honestly tank-like build quality that never flexed no matter how hard I squeezed the mouse, making the aforementioned Death Adder feel closer to a toy. And as far as the bottom of the mouse came to a stop nearly as soon as I'd let go of the mouse, which I personally liked and felt was better in slower paced and more single-player games. But I also find this really depends on what you're used to in a mouse, as well as personal preference, being overall less ideal for faster paced and competitive games where tiny movements of the mouse can make a big difference. But moving on to the other major aspect of any mouse, its buttons. Unlike any gaming mouse I've reviewed before, this mouse features 12 fully customizable buttons. The customization I'll get to in a bit, but as far as the buttons, Mouse 1 and Mouse 2 have audible clicks that aren't overly loud, but are a bit heavier and slower than I like in a mouse, but being redeemed by their satisfying tactility. The scroll wheel and Mouse 3 are now my favorite in any mouse I've tried before, with Mouse 3 being audible and the scrolls being silent. Mouse 4 and 5, as usual, are a bit clunkier with longer travel distances, but don't wobble in the slightest. And the DPI up and down are out of the way and close to the body, which is everything I look for in such buttons. Right next to Mouse 1 is this mouse's Game button, which in this case registers 2 left clicks as fast as possible. Usually, I wouldn't condone an unfair advantage such as this, but its functionality outside of gaming, such as for opening files and to highlight words, gives it a pass in my books. But unfortunately with a feel that is barely passable and is by far the worst feeling button on the mouse. Which brings me back to the left side of the mouse, with the 4 extra buttons that are nice and clicky, with the number of them striking a good balance between usefulness and clutter, being a perfect addition to nearly every game I use them in, but not annoyingly taking up the whole side of one's mouse like other mice do with their 9 and 10 extra buttons. Each button is a different size and has a slightly different feel, which led me to never have a problem with distinguishing between them or being unsure about which one was which. But now onto the software. Every single button on the mouse was remappable, if not unfortunately only to the preset list of functions. The software also includes a macro system, which I never used but seems competent, with lighting customization probably being the clunkiest part of the software for me, with it overall being intuitive, at least for someone who has used similar software before. DPI, as it should be, is entirely adjustable, and you can also create as many profiles as you like, as well as import and export them. And finally, the only major issue I had while using the software was sometimes it being unable to detect my mouse being plugged in, which happens seemingly at random. Which now brings me on to the miscellaneous section of the video. I genuinely do not understand what this strange green logo on the side of the mouse is doing, and I think it really kills the looks of an otherwise pretty decently looking mouse. I'd also like to warn Mac users of the lack of software as well as being stuck with the defaults if you wish to use this mouse, which has the custom buttons mapped to the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, with neither of the back and forth buttons working well in macOS either. The mouse does not work on glass surfaces, even with a solid object underneath, and the mouse's LEDs also stayed on well in sleep mode. All small annoyances, but nothing I would call a deal breaker, even for the Mac users. So, in conclusion, throughout this review, I have been pretty heavily critiquing this mouse, but when it comes down to it, there are a fair number of things that the PG2 does that simply other mice can't do. Before this mouse, I never saw a need for custom buttons on my mouse, but now, honestly, they have been really great to use. And for this price, the build quality and the general comfort are unparalleled. These things do sacrifice agility and lightness. However, as someone who only plays competitive games for fun, as well as primarily spends their time playing single-player games, I will take comfort any day of the week. So if you are someone like me who prefers comfort over competition, or you are someone who needs or is simply interested in extra buttons, this mouse gets a solid recommendation. Go out and buy it. But if you need a fast and a light mouse, or you use a claw grip, you're probably going to have a better time looking elsewhere.